Why? Because you need to see these things. You need to physically see that this thing is really there or it's existing. If you don't understand neurons and neuroclass, what are you doing? Hi siblings, it's Dicot Medical here. Yes, I know. Before you come for me, I know that I haven't been consistent and I'm really sorry. I'm going to do better. Moving on to what we're going to be talking about today. The purpose of this video is to educate you or to tell you about a particular study method which I think every medical student should practice, but its timing right now is mostly for those preparing for their first professional exam, that's MB1. Let's backtrack a bit. If we look at the curriculum for a preclinical student, that's 200 level and 300 level, spanning across first in course, second in course, and third in course, we see that there is a method to the madness. In your first in course, you're basically taught the foundational things, the things you need to know in med school, the things which you will build upon, which your knowledge and understanding should build upon. Let's go across anatomy, physiology, and biochemistry. Now, the anatomies you learn in your first in course, from your gross anatomy to your general histology to your general embryology. In your general histology, you are taught about cells and tissues. Cell, we know, is the basic structural and functional unit of life. And if you remember, or if you can relate, your anatomies teach you about structures in the human body, while your physiologists teach you about functions in the human body. Structures and functions. So in studying about cell, it is a preliminary to anatomy and physiology at the microscopic basis. Now in histology, you learn about the cell, the different organelles in the cell and their functions, the plasma membrane, the intricacies that have to do with the plasma membrane from the lipid bilayer and the proteins and every other thing that has to do with that. And if you go into the tissues, what do you learn? You learn muscular tissue, nervous tissue, connective tissue, and epithelial tissue. Nerve tissue teaches about the neurons and the neuroglia, that is the cells of the nervous system. This information or this understanding of nerve tissue will feed into your third in course or your second in course whenever you deal with neuroanatomy or neurohistology, even neurophysiology. This nerve tissue is to give you a basic understanding before you start studying before you start studying the nervous system itself. The nerve tissue is to give you a basic understanding for you to be able to build on. Same thing with muscle tissue. You learn about if it's for muscle tissue of the heart, you learn about the myocytes, or you may learn about normal muscle tissue, that's from the myofibrils to the muscle cell itself, the different intricacies and networks from your I band to your Z band, how muscles contract, how it looks like in histological stains, the types of muscle fibers, or the types of cardiac muscle, the types of muscle fibers, that's from cardiac muscle to smooth muscle to skeletal muscle. It all feeds into the gross anatomy you're going to be learning, which is mostly dealing with skeletal muscle. The part you're going to learn about the heart, the muscle type of the heart is the cardiac muscle, and in the part you're going to learn about the smooth muscles in the intestine the tongue, and all of those things. And if we move forward, same for epithelial and collective tissue. Note, I'm not saying those are the only things you are going to be taught or those are the only things you were taught, but I want you to understand that there is a method. You started with this, and later in your preclinical years, you met yourself learning something else that is connected to what you started with. Okay, let's move to the embryology. Embryology, you started with the cells. The first to third week of development tells you everything that occurs before organ development. You know, a system is comprising of organs. So embryology, your general embryology is basically telling, apart from first to third week of development, you also need to learn about spermatogenesis or genesis, that's under gametogenesis. But what is majorly telling you is that before you start forming organs, this and this is what happens. This and this is how the sperm is made. This and this is how the ovum or oocyte is made. They come together, and this is what occurs from the process from the point of fertilization to the end, before organs develop, also linking back to cells. And now let's go to our physiologies. Now, in your general physiology, blood physiology, whichever physiologies you did in your first in course, it is very paramount, and I know that you were taught cell, the intricacies of cell, from the intricacies of cell, from the organelles in the cell and their specific functions, to the plasma membrane, to the materials that can go in and out of the cell, and why. Physiology explains to you the function. So in cell physiology, you learned about the function of the cell as a whole. Why is this important? Because later, in your second in course and your third in course, you're going to be introduced to a variety of systems, and in each system they have different structures, different anatomical structures, and each anatomical structure, from the microscopic level to the gross level, have various functions. And how do we know their functions? Yes, we know the arm. We know, okay, let's say now the muscle, whatever muscle, let's say the biceps now, is to contract. We know that anatomically is located here, okay? And we know physiologically it is to contract. But cell physiology, muscle physiology is what helps us to understand how it's contracting, how they come together, like how the bands come together, and when they shorten, that's when the muscle fiber shortens and it's able to pull the bone. Do you understand? And now biochemistry may not seem to be connected, may not seem to be so in tune with this method, like, because biochemistry, it can be difficult to link it to different systems. But in your first in course, you were taught chemistry of biomacromolecules. In your second in course and third in course, you've been taught metabolism of biomacromolecules. Chemistry of biomacromolecules introduces you to the structure of, like, the different structures of these various compounds, their function, where they are found, why they are important, what are the specificities that are particular to these structures. In metabolism, you learn how these structures are built up, how they are built up in the body, how they are broken down in the body. In first in course, you also learned about enzymes. Enzymes are the foundational basis of biochemistry, because you know that in different pathways, in the metabolic pathways, if you don't understand and if you don't know the enzymes, it will be very difficult for you to follow across with what is happening in the pathway. And in that pathway, if any enzyme is missing, it translates into an inborn error of metabolism, which can have catastrophic effects on an individual. Other topics are also weaved in both your first in course, second in course, and third in course. But the reason I just explained all these things is because I want you to understand that a framework has actually been set for you. A framework has actually been set for you. Okay, let's calm down first. Just breathe. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm going to give you like 3 seconds. Okay, now I want you to understand that this thing is not difficult. This thing is not rocket science. I just outlined your curriculum for you. What happens in first in course? From second in course and third in course, you treat different systems. Different systems are involved. Different systems are divided across your second in course and your third in course. But this foundational knowledge is what you need to know. For example, in anatomy, let's treat the respiratory system from your thorax and abdomen. You understand and you are taught the anatomy of, let's focus on the lungs now. You are taught the anatomy of the lungs, the different areas of the lungs, the different bronchopulmonary segments. You are taught what they look like, where they are, and you have to understand it. In your physiology, your respiratory physiology, you are taught about the functional unit of the cell, that is the alveoli. You are educated on it, on how it performs gaseous exchange at the microscopic level, and you are taught about things that have to do with the lung itself in a microscopic level. From the serous fluid to the pleura, you learn their functions, you learn why they're important, you learn the lung volumes, you learn how much your lung is supposed to be, you learn how elastic your lung is supposed to be. If you do not understand that physiology has to do with function, and the functions all boils down to the cell at the microscopic level, it can prove to be very difficult for your understanding. Okay, now let's go back. Let's go to the method I believe you should use to study for your MB. Now, in everything I've said, I hope I have brought you to understand that these things are connected. Okay, you're not supposed to, you're taught them in a holistic manner. The same time you were being taught the basis of anatomy was the same time you were taught the basis of physiology and biochemistry. You're not supposed to study them isolatedly or in an isolated manner. Before you, some people sat down countless nights forming this curriculum, and this curriculum has been revised multiple times to ensure that you are provided with a framework for you to understand things holistically. Therefore, I don't think it really makes sense for you to study in isolation, for you to study these courses in isolation. If you understand this key, the systems method of studying just means that instead of studying for your professional exams according to the in courses, like according to first semester, second semester, first semester, instead of studying it according to the in courses or according to the courses, you can also have a method. You can also link everything back the way you were educated. Now, let that sink in. What I'm saying is that instead of studying general histology today, general embryology today, next tomorrow you are studying cardiovascular physiology, doesn't it make sense for you to link the knowledge together in a logical sequence? If you start with cell today in general histology, you can do general embryology tomorrow. You can do general physiology next tomorrow. Systems method gives you a chain understanding of these courses, a way for you to bring this knowledge together. Now, that is the definition of systems method. Now, let me explain using a practical example. For example, now, the nervous system. Nervous system involves many things. Like the nervous system as a system alone, I want you to begin to think in systems instead of in courses. Begin to think in systems for the purpose of this video. Now, the nervous system alone has from neuroanatomy, neurohistology, neurophysiology, neurochemistry. It has chemistry of the neurotransmitters, neurochemistry. Now, everything I just listed is not under anatomy, is not under physiology, is not under biochemistry. It's a combination of anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, but they are all common to the nervous system, but they are all under the nervous system. So when you want to start studying the nervous system, since you were not taught these things in isolation, I want you to bring these things together. If you want to approach the nervous system, what's the first thing you do? The anatomy of the nervous system. What's the first anatomy I think you should do? The gross anatomy. Why? Because you need to see these things. You need to physically see that this thing is really there or it's existing. The gross anatomy of the nervous system. That's the brain, the spinal cord. I don't think you'll be able to isolate the peripheral nervous system. So let's just focus on the central nervous system. So now, that was that gross anatomy. That's the brain, the spinal cord. You understand it. You understand the different areas from Broca's area to Wernicke's area. You understand the different lobes. Don't go into the skull or the head, the face. No, wait first. Let's tackle these visceral parts. You understand these areas, like, and what they signify. You know, this is what you were taught in your practical when you were dissecting and all this thing was brought out. This is also what you studied. So you have to go through it again, study it again. Okay, this is the function of this is the function of this. Okay, to the spinal cord, the different spinal segments, what they innervate, why they are important. You know, also in the spinal cord, actually, we can see either via gross anatomy or in histology, we can see that there are some segments that are bigger than other segments. Why does that happen? Okay, this and this is how it happens. Great. Then you go into the histology of the nervous system. The understanding of neurons and neuroglia in any any course under nervous system is what you need to build upon. Like, if you don't understand neurons and neuroglia, what are you doing? So you understand, after the gross anatomy of it, you understand the neurohistology. Okay, neurohistology obviously is not just neurons and neuroglia, but you start there. You start the neurons and the neuroglia, then you go to the neurohistology of the cerebrum, neurohistology of the cerebellum, neurohistology of the spinal cord, neurohistology from the pons to the medulla, everything that has to do with the nervous system. You study it, okay, you understand it. This thing is beginning to make a little bit more sense. Then you go into the embryology. You go into the embryology, you understand that, the beginning of this nervous system is actually the neural tube. This and this is formed. Okay, that cerebrum and cerebellum I'm seeing, they did not start like that. Oh, it started like one Christmas tree formation like this, that it enlarged and combined and started moving very, very funny. Do you understand? And then like that, now you've covered the anatomy of the nervous system. Note, I said nervous system owing to the combination of the two organs, the brain and the spinal cord. Obviously, your neurohistology, please cover the peripheral nervous system. Then after that, you finish the anatomy of the nervous system. Another thing that is associated with the nervous system is the sense organs. So, my dear brothers and sisters, you need to study the anatomy of the sense organs. From your eyes to your nose to your tongue, you need to study the anatomy of the sense organs. And then after that, when you finally finish with the anatomy of the nervous system, you go to the physiology of the nervous system. Neurophysiology. That's it. Neurophysiology, you learn about the functions, the different tracts, the functional significance of the eyes, the functional significance of the eyes, the pathway of vision, the pathway of, or the auditory pathway, or the pathway of hearing, like that. This is a chain knowledge, or this is a merging of different courses. Do you understand? You cannot use exactly what I've said step by step, because there are other things you were taught in these courses. Now, what is so important, or what is so wonderful about this systems method is that aside from giving you this logical way of reasoning, logical way of understanding, you also find yourself aiming and striving to actually finish your courses. Now, let me explain what I have here for the nervous system. So now, so I crafted this is the study method I actually used for my MB, and I did wonderfully well. So I have the documents of how each system was explained, of how you should study each system. I have the document of how you should study each system, a lineup of BCH topics. So the link to this, so I'm going to put this on my WhatsApp channel, and the link to the WhatsApp channel will be either in the description and will be in the comments, in the comment section, and will be in the description of this video. So be sure to click on the link of the WhatsApp channel and go there and go and check out this document. Now, reading from this document, nervous system and special senses, from the neuroanatomy, the neurophysiology of all sense organs, spanning across the eyes, the ears, the nose, tongue, mouth, skin. Yes, do you know why skin? Because of nociceptors. I know it looks like you are grasping for straws, but you are not grasping for straws. This thing is actually related. It's actually, and even if you feel like skin is a bit too far now, even though yes, it has something to do, but it's not that kenny. you have to study skin. Like, you have to study skin for your MB. I really hope you are following me here. Then neurohistology, neuroembryology, selected topics in neurophysiology and pathophysiology. In the neuroanatomy, you're going to be taught the clinical correlation of the nervous system. So different things that have to do with the brain, the basal ganglia. Open your ears. Oh. After gross anatomy, you learn the histology, you learn the embryology. You have to study neuroanatomy. Like, neuroanatomy and gross anatomy of the brain are two different things. Study it too. Let me take another system to explain the respiratory system. So when you begin the respiratory system, you can start with the lungs, gross anatomy of the lungs. No, when you begin the respiratory system, you start with the gross anatomy of the respiratory tract. Now, you do not have to start with gross anatomy, but I would advise you start with gross anatomy or the histology. The reason I keep saying starting with gross anatomy is because it just makes it easier to tie it all together when you have and you understand the physical structure, like what the physical structure of this system looks like. So in the respiratory system, we have the upper respiratory tract, lower respiratory tract. So when you study the gross anatomy, you study, okay, from here to here is the upper respiratory system, from here to here is the lower respiratory system. The lower respiratory system feeds into the lungs. This is the gross anatomy of the lungs. This is the gross anatomy of the trachea. Okay, now the bronchioles. Now, how many branches? What are the primary branches? Secondary branches. They feed into the lungs. Okay, now what are the segments of the lungs? The bronchopulmonary segments. What is their anatomical significance? What's their significance in surgery? You understand. You are intelligent. You understand this thing like mad. You understand it. Now, after studying the gross anatomy of the lungs, then you go to the respiratory histology or respiratory system histology. The important cells in the respiratory system histology. That's the pseudostratified columnar epithelium. Then the respiratory epithelium itself. What are the important cells that line the respiratory tract? What are the important cells that are found in the lungs, the alveoli, the type 1 pneumocyte, type 2 pneumocytes, all these things. You have to, as I'm mentioning them in passing, but you have to study them to understand. You have to sit down and calm down and study them to understand. And then, yes, the upper respiratory tract, the lower respiratory tract. Then, when you finish the anatomy, that's after the histology, you go to the embryology of the respiratory system. Okay, you study embryology very, very well. Then you go to the respiratory physiology. Respiratory physiology, from the lung volumes to the lung capacities, everything you need to know. Then innervation of the respiratory system, I think that's under the gross anatomy, respiratory system, pathophysiology. So I hope you understand what I'm saying. Now, in this sense, now it can be kind of difficult, like, oh, where is biochemistry coming in? Actually, biochemistry does have more than I thought, Shao. It does have involvement in systems more than I thought. For example, in nervous system now, neurochemistry. That is the chemistry or the biochemistry of neurotransmitters, how they are made, their significance, their function. Then endocrine system, the hormonal biochemistry. So that's like what happens biochemically. You can understand what happens when a hormone binds to a receptor physiologically. You can also understand it biochemically. Do you get, like, the same thing is happening, but it's just being expressed in different forms. Okay, let's continue. So now, in nervous system, endocrine system, those are ways you can fit in biochemistry. But it is more difficult to fit in biochemistry in the systems method than it is to fit in anatomy and physiology. So what I would just say is that in whatever system that you are studying when you are just starting, okay, if the system actually does not have a clear link to biochemistry, for example, in respiratory system, you can just fit in a biochemistry topic of your choice. In this document, I also have all the biochemistry topics for I also have all the biochemistry topics for my school. Okay, I have all the biochemistry topics lined up here. And one thing that really helped me in biochemistry is that since it was not exactly flowing with the systems method, what I did was I got a list of the topics, and then as I was studying the systems method, going at anatomy and physiology, I would pick biochemistry. So for every day I study anatomy and physiology, I would study biochemistry, but I would just pick any topic. You can go in line with the entire scheme, but that's not what I did. I think like I said, I first did the chemistries, then I did the metabolisms, and then the special topics in between. Okay, so if you want this, it is also going to be in the document, so don't forget to click the link to my WhatsApp channel. I'm not trying to help you, I just want to help you. Okay, so yes, that's just it. Now the document also has some other things that I believe would be very, very helpful. It also has IGMC topics which you can use to study. Okay, yes, which you can use to study. But yes, so that is basically it about the systems method of studying. Okay, now We have come to the end of this video. We have come to the end of me explaining this study method to you. Now, I really believe that if you do not have a strategy yet, or if you're finding it difficult to cope with the strategy that you're using, you should use this study method, or you should apply this study method. That's the systems method of studying. And I want to encourage you again. This systems method of studying is not a shortcut. This systems method of studying is not a shortcut, and whatever strategy you decide to use, there is no shortcut for it. You need to put in the effort. Okay. In fact, if you look at this systems method from a glance, you would see that it is more demanding, or it looks to be more demanding than the in-course method. But I just want you to know that. So I just want to beg you that, please, now is the time to die. Just apply yourself, submit yourself to the process, and you would see wonderful things happening. This is not just about your grade. Yes, everyone is aiming for distinctions. Everyone is aiming to be that one student that clears all their papers with distinctions. But this also feeds into what you may currently be studying, whether you are an intercalating student or whatever it is that you may be doing. I believe that the way the curriculum has been made for this preclinical year is the same way it has been made for clinical year and for other courses worldwide. You are supposed to have a holistic understanding. You are not supposed to study these courses in isolation. And I know for some of us it may seem so very late to be understanding this method, or it may seem so very late, like, oh my gosh, I wish I knew this when I just started med school. It really isn't too late. It is not too late. And you don't know how much I believe in you. Like, I believe in you so much. You can take this thing, no matter how many weeks is remaining to your exam, how many months is remaining to your exam. All hope is not lost, and all hope is never lost. You can take this method, and it can really change your perspective on medicine, change your perspective on life. Because this systems method, apart from being applied to med school, preclinical year, apart from being applied to anatomy, physiology, you are comprising of systems that have particular function. Your GIT is to ingest food, to digest it, and then to provide energy, to provide nutrients, which would end up providing energy anyways, but to provide energy, to provide nutrients. And what is not being used is being excreted, is being taken out of you. It is a combination of organs and processes that form this system. Even your body does not work in isolation, because while your GIT is working, your heart is beating and blood is being pumped to all your organs, and you are breathing. Your respiratory system is working. Don't forget to go harder today. Go harder tomorrow. Whenever this video reaches you, it is always going to be a new day, and you always have the opportunity to go harder. Please, lastly, do not forget to click that link in the comment section or the description, and to take you to my WhatsApp channel, where this document will be waiting for you. I'm really rooting for you, and I really believe in you, my siblings. I'm really rooting for you, and I really believe in you. Take your life seriously. You are the owner of the life. Okay. Thank you for coming to the end of this video, for staying to the end of this video. Please, whatever question you have, type it in the comment section below. Whatever concern you may have, whatever you want me to explain, type it in the comment section. And share this video to as many people as you know that are preparing for MB or are starting 200 level. Because even if you are preparing for your MB and it is too late for you to start from scratch, or it's too late for you to start from 200 level, you know someone and you know people that are just beginning their 200 level, or maybe in their 200 level second semester, that would really benefit from this. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful day.